Hey there, welcome to this week's podcast for Unscrambled Faith. I am your host, Megan Clark, and I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me this week. I'm so excited, and y'all, I'm just having the best day ever. I had a good therapy day. First off, I'm going to go ahead and give myself some flowers because I am loving this shirt. It's so comfortable. I know I usually talk about my earrings for real usually every week, but the shirt that I'm wearing is just so aesthetically comfortable. I yesterday was stimming big time, you guys. Everything that I was wearing, it just was like itchy and too tight and all the things, and I just wasn't feeling it. But I will say today, I'm definitely more or less feeling myself. But I love the shirt. It's just so comfortable. But without further ado, let's talk about this week's earrings. So I'm actually basically rocking, I wouldn't say like a basic hoop, but it's like a gold hoop. I don't know if you can see without me getting too close, but there's like some rigid wrap detail on them, but they're like little chunky hoops, super cute. I definitely didn't want to take away from the moment, which is this shirt that I'm rocking this week today. But let's go ahead and dive into it. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with me on the Unscrambled Faith podcast. This week we are talking a little bit about stillness in our life. Maybe you're approaching a season of your life at this point, or maybe this week is just going better for you. Things are going good. But before we go ahead and dive in, I really want you to take a time. Let's pause. I love the word pause. Pause. Today we're pausing because I want you to imagine with me for a moment. So first off, I want you to take a deep breath. And we're going to in, release out. I want you to loosen up the shoulders. I want you to loosen up, release the tension in your hands, loosen up your shoulders. If you got to do a little head stretch, obviously if you're listening to this and you're driving, do what you can, stay safe. Otherwise, if you are anywhere else but driving, hopefully you're a little bit loosened up, whatever you got to do just to kind of loosen up, release some of that tension in our body. But the reason why I want you to do that is because I want you to imagine with me for a moment right now. Imagine that there's no chaos around you. There's no chaos. What does that look like? What does that feel like? No chaos around you. It's calm. Your presence is calm. The lifestyle that you're leading is calm. The room that you're currently in is calm. Life is going great. What does that feel like? What does that look like for you when I say life is going great? How would you feel? I could tell you first off, right out the gate, how I feel. Because this season of my life that I am now officially, I feel like entering into, now that it's officially spring season, is that I'm in this state of calmness. I shared with my therapist last week that what really truly caught me off guard was the fact that here I am sitting in therapy, and now I feel like I'm inclined to say this, that not every week is a good week in therapy, okay? If you get it, you get it. If you're in therapy yourself, you get it. Not every week's going to be a good week. But I don't go into the new week with the mindset of, oh, is this going to be good or bad? I go with the flow, right? Take my days day by day. So with that being said, last week I was in my therapy session. I remember I was talking to my therapist, and I point blank was like, because she asked me right out the gate, she was like, so how was your week last week? How are things? How you been? And I paused, and I told you I love that word pause, because I had to pause because there was a moment where I almost was searching for like, okay, did something go wrong last week? What went wrong? And I kept thinking about it, and I told her, I said, one thing that I'm trying to practice and meditate on is that it's okay that nothing is happening. I felt like that there was this immense amount of pressure that I was putting myself to not only have some kind of like awesome, big experience, crazy story to share with her, or perhaps the direct opposite of that my week was chaotic, that it was stressful, that things were happening, that life was lifing. But I want to be real with you. I want to be honest. It was a calm week. Nothing happened. Nothing exciting happened, but at the same time, that's okay, right? Like I'll take a week of just calm and quiet And I told her recently, in fact, I told her today, I was like, I feel like I'm kind of like in my granny era, but a sassy granny era. Because even though I have like my hobbies and the things that I like and the way my lifestyle is now, and then like I like the fact that I can relax in my recliner. I love my cats and my dogs. I love sipping hot tea. I love just being cozy, and I said that there's certain other things that I like that I refer to as like my granny era. But I'm a sassy granny, because what kind of granny rocks this kind of top, let alone these headphones? You know what I mean? Like, and I told her, I said, it's interesting how I felt that something was wrong because everything was going right around me. Can you relate to that? Because I thought that was pretty interesting. My thing is that what if there's a behind stillness? What if there's a fear behind stillness? What if you're like myself and you come from a background of chaos, uncertainty, maybe perhaps you were raised in a family environment which is unpredictable, that if you're like me and you know how to mask, there's one of those magical words, right? If you know how to mask, if you can predict, if you're an empath as well, hello, if you can predict people's personality, like if you're like, well, if you just are on thin ice, you're just hesitant all the time, or you can predict how something's going to go before it happens. If you're that type of person, then perhaps now, if you're in your adult years and you're watching this, you could maybe relate or not to what, like myself, where because I was raised and was in such a chaotic environment for so long in my upbringing, unpredictable, chaotic environment, that now that I'm in this era, this season of my life of calm and gratitude and stillness and peace and quiet, that there's a fear behind it. That I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. That I'm like, okay. I mean, I've had people in my past show that they're friends with me now, or they've come and gone different seasons of my life. But I do distinctly remember having conversations with some of my friends in the past that have said just that. Things are going too good. Things are going too good. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or I'm holding my breath. That's why one at the very beginning of this, I really was like, let's take a deep breath in. Let's let it out. Because how many of us are holding our breath, waiting for something bad to happen? Because so many things, we've had such a bad hand dealt to us for so long that it was like, either they're like, oh, it rains when it rains, it pours. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we had things happen to us in our life where we're in a season where we just can't catch a break? We can't catch our breath. And we're like, God, shouting to the rooftops, God, when is it going to be my turn? When am I going to have a helping hand? Or I keep helping everybody else. When do I get a break? But then the break happens. God puts blessings in our lives. We enter a season of peacefulness, calm, and we're like, ooh, it's the calm before the storm, because I just know a storm is a brewing. But what if I told you that it's okay? What if we thought for a moment, if it's possible for us to pause, there's that word again, we can pause, and in the moment of pausing, we sit still in the peace and calm, in that pocket, in that warm hug. What if we could sit still in the peace and calm and feel like we're protected, like we're loved, like it's going to be okay? Everything else that's been dealt to us in life is behind us. And everything that God has instilled for us, all the blessings, all the promises that he talks about in the Bible, everything that he's been whispering to you in your thoughts at night, everything that's on your heart, anything that somebody has prayed and talked to you and poured onto you, that these things are in the making. These things are stirring up around us. These things are happening. I want you to know that it's okay. And I'm telling myself that because, like I said this last week, y'all heard me. I was sitting in therapy, and she's like, how are things going? And it felt awkward to not have an answer. But I'm glad I paused and I took it in, and I told her, I said, you know what? Nothing's really happening. I'm good. Life is good. I'm good. I mean, could it be better? Yeah. But I'm not complaining because it has been worse. It has been worse. And I remember sitting there on her couch, and I told her, I said, you know what? I'm okay that things are okay. It's okay for me just to sit in this and for it to just be. I haven't said that in a while. Long time ago. I used to say that all the time, that I love to just to be in the presence, to be present in the moment. I've worked really hard. I always thought that was kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, that one day I'm going to get to a place. It was like a fantasy of mine. I'm like, I can see it on the horizon that one day I'm going to get to a place where I'm going to be able to relish in the peace and quiet in my life. That all the hard work and all the layers that I've worked through and all of the exhausting moments of reflecting and perseverance and pushing through and working through all the chaos and addressing the triggers as they come, and all the work that I put into my life, all the faith that I have put in with God and my relationship with God, all these things at some point have to align with one another. And here they are. So I'm here to tell you that if it's in your heart that you feel fear because there's a lot of stillness that's happening around you, it's okay. Because when we come from chaos, stillness can feel foreign to us. It can feel like something's up, something's astirring, something's up, something ain't right. But it's only because we've been so used to chaos our whole lives. Chaos is that warm blanket to us that grew up in that, because that's the familiar. How do we learn to embrace peace instead of fearing it? How do we learn to embrace it? We can reflect on how God calls us to rest and trust in his plans. Y'all, coming from somebody that has spicy ADHD brain, I remember for quite some time in my life, I mean, we're talking for at least like a span, at least of 15 years at least, where I was constantly being a Martha and not a Mary. And if you don't know that reference, basically what that means, summing it up, is that I was always on the go. I was always staying busy. I always had a to-do list. I had a list for my to-do list. I could never say no to anything. I was always constantly feeling like, it was almost like I had this emptiness, this void inside of me, this ache, that, oh my God, if I pause, if I stay still, if I rest, then all of this stuff, all these thoughts that are up here, all this chaos that's happening in my brain is going to hit me all at once, and it's going to be so overwhelming, and it'll break me, and I can't take that. So I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to go, like, because I'm the Energizer bunny, right? And I've got all this energy, and I'm never going to tell anyone no, because I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to let anyone down. I want to keep busy, because if I'm busy, I look productive. And if I'm being productive, that means that I'm successful. And if I'm being successful, that means that I'm going to keep rising to the top and rising to the top. And people are going to be proud of me, right? Because she's busy. She's always on the go. Ooh, she's always doing the things. But here's the thing. Because I was always on the go, I crashed and burned. I burned out. Have you ever gotten burned out before? I have. I'll tell you, my burned out looks like that is when I come down sick. Can I get an amen? Ooh, is when I get sick. I have a bad back, a bad neck. I have all this stuff going on with me behind here because of all the many wrecks that I've been in. Things, work jobs that I've had, physical jobs that have put immense amount of damage to my spine, to my back. So there are times when I'm not resting, that God has definitely forced me to rest. Whether it's because I become sick because I'm not taking good care of my body, I'm not resting, or again, my back, my neck's bothering me, so I've got to pause, I got to rest. It could be that life is lifing, something abrupt happens to my life, either I lose my job, I've walked away from jobs, chaos has happened in my marriage, happened in my relationships, happened in my family, things like that, y'all, is a wake-up call that something ain't right. And it's important for us to start working on those things one step at a time. You pick, or pray, have a conversation with God. Get him to help you out to pick. But I've learned the hard way that God calls upon us to rest. Whether it's a season in our life, whether it's for a day, whether it's for an hour, we absolutely have to rest. There's a reason why. There's a reason why God has one day of the week where he calls us to rest. Now, if you're not aligning with that, that's okay. Because I'm asking you to take time out of your week to find some sort of rest. Rest is going to look different for everybody. Rest does not necessarily mean absolutely not doing anything. But I guarantee you, you will see a small change that will become a big difference in your life and in the season that you're in, or maybe perhaps the next season that you'll enter in, if you start doing the work now and reflect on what that looks like for you when you take rest. Trust his plan. When we make our own plans, and y'all, I can't tell you how many times that I've made plans. Make plans. And I heard this over and over. One of these shows that I love watching, this specific person in the show said this over and over. She's like, tell God your plans and he will laugh at you. Because here's the thing is that we're human. So of course we're always going to have a plan, right? A lot of us, it brings comfort to us to have a plan. But here's the thing. God has other plans. And kind of like how I said earlier, when I had like a to-do list and I had a checklist for my to-do list, to me, I like to look at it the same thing. Like, we have plans for our life. God has a bigger plan. If you want to have plans for where you're going to be at in 5 years from now, where you're going to be at a few months from now, a couple weeks from now, that's cool. That's fine. That's great. Do you? But here's the thing. God has a bigger plan in store. And sometimes according to maybe perhaps what we may want in the next couple of weeks, or what we want in this next season of life, or what we're wanting 5 years from now. It's cool. It's great. We could start perhaps taking matters into our own hands and start working towards whatever that's going to look like. But I guarantee you, God, most of the time, has a different plan. How can we break the cycle of expecting the worst? So how can we break the cycle of that mentality of when it rains it pours, or the other one, just wait for the other shoe to drop, or things are going a little too good recently? That means something bad's on the horizon. How can we break the cycle of expecting the worst? Our past may have trained us to always be on guard. Remember what I was saying earlier, is that if you grew up in a lifestyle, if you grew up throughout your childhood, throughout your adolescence, if you grew up in an environment, whether it was a school environment, church environment, family environment, where there was all chaos all the time, unpredictability, chaos all the time, then perhaps you have also, just like myself, trained your brain to always be on guard. That you were always on guard. I had my wall up for so long, and in fact, there are some individuals in my life that are still in my life to this day that their pattern of their personality, of the decisions that they make, I can predict ahead of time because I've grown up with these people. And it's almost like, to me, like a chess game. I'm one step ahead of them every time. Now, I will say this, that is exhausting in itself. And it's something that I didn't even know that I was doing up until, I would say, probably like a couple of years ago. And again, that's because of therapy. I never ever would have that would have never crossed my mind, y'all, that I have certain individuals in my life that I can predict how they're going to act, say, do before they do it. And I hate that. Well, hate's a strong word. I dislike that. I dislike that because it's exhausting. But otherwise, the truth of the matter is that because our past was chaotic, we have been trained to always be on guard. We're waiting for things to go wrong, right? We're waiting for it to go wrong. How can we shift our mindset from survival mode to faith mode? Can we go from survival mode of waiting for the worst to happen to faith mode? Faith mode being that God's got my back, God has a plan for me. I'm leaning into this new season. I'm trusting Him. I'm trusting the process. Even though it feels like things are going a little too good right now, I'm going to lean in to that pocket of safety. I'm going to lean into that pocket of warmth, the warm hug, basically. I think I'm hugging myself right now. A warm hug. We're leaning into it, because if we lean into it, then and only then we can recognize and we can resist those old patterns. We have to break old patterns, y'all. We have to break it. Why would you not want to be in a season of your life of calm, of stillness, of calm, of wanting, not holding our breath all the time, not waiting for the other shoe to drop? Always felt like that was like a fantasy in the distance. One day it'll happen. Well, my day is today. And I want the same for you. When life slows down, it's easy for old habits and thoughts and patterns to resurface. Ain't that the truth? Because for me and my business, I'm a small business owner. If you didn't know this, I'm a small business owner, and honestly, the busiest season for me is typically around like August to maybe like mid-December. And then from January, I would say maybe to about like May, maybe April, it's a little bit slower. My business looks a little bit different. And because of that, I'm left with more time for myself, more gaps. Things are not as planned. I'm not always on the go. I'm not doing as many vendor events. I have more time on my hands. And because I have more time, that allows more emptiness up here, right? More space for thoughts, intrusive thoughts. And that those are intrusive thoughts, I'm allowing access into my mind. What are they going to say? Like, say it with me now. When is the other shoe going to drop? Things are only going good for a while. Those old habits are going to creep in, and the patterns that we've had, those chaotic patterns that we grew up with, are going to come to the surface again. They're going to resurface. How is it that we can remain vigilant without slipping back in anxiety and self-sabotaging? I feel like there are moments in our lives when we have made it to the other side, when there has been hope and we have the hope, and then when we're now in a season of our life that we can wake up and almost every day be like, it's a good day. Things are getting better. I'm on the up and up. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not like how it used to be. I'm moving on. I'm healing. But then what happens at that point is that I feel like then we have these, again, old habits. These thoughts start coming into the surface of self-sabotaging. So what does that look like? Typically that's those voices in our head that tell us that we're not good enough, that we're too much, that we're too loud, that no one's going to like what we're doing, no one's going to appreciate us, no one's going to support our business, no one's going to take me seriously. You're listening to this, you tell me. What is it that you've been telling yourself recently that's an intrusive thought? We have them all the time. I mean, we're human, right? But the difference is between one person to the next is when the intrusive thought comes to our mind, are we going to bless and release it? And be like, nah, brush it aside. Nope, move on. Or are we going to relish and soak it in and rehearse it in our mind over and over and over? And it could be even perhaps things that people outside of our thoughts, co-workers, family members, spouse, children, neighbors, boss, you name it. Somebody's telling you something, that's not so great. Not so great. And it's an intrusive thought that they've told you. It could have been like a couple days ago, could have been a week ago, but it's still relishing up here in our brain mentally, and we keep going over and over and over, rehearsing it over and over in our minds, and before we know it, we've adapted that's who I am. They said that about me, so it must be true. That's self-sabotaging. The truth of the matter is that what's more important in the who we are is not what somebody else is telling us on the outside, but what God tells us who we are and what we say about ourselves on the inside. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. One specific scripture that I can certainly tie in with this week's podcast conversation is John chapter 14, verse 27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give you to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid. Friends and family, friends, thank you so much for watching this. And the one thing that I hope for you going into this week is either one or two things. That peace becomes a part of your life. I pray peace for you. Perhaps if you are now in a season of life where there is peace and there is a sense of calmness, I hope that the one key takeaway that you can bring back from this week's podcast is that it's okay that nothing is happening. It's okay that there's a sense of calmness around you. You can let out your breath. Stop holding your breath. Enjoy the sense that there's stillness around us. Because the thing is that God has a hedge of protection around you and your family. You've got the body armor of Christ with you. God is always going to be on your side. There's nothing wrong with staying present in this moment and enjoying life the way that it is. Yes, there are things out of our control, outliers, whether outside of our community, in this world, in our own environments, that we can't control. But what you can control is the space around you, the peace that you've worked so hard for, the calmness that you want for you and your family, you and your spouse. It's okay to relish in that. It's okay to be still. It's okay to be present. The one thing that I could wish for anybody that I cross paths with is to have a sense of peace and stillness and to be able to just be. Because I tell you what, I worked so hard to get to that part. I worked so hard to get to that place. And I cannot even imagine not having this in my life. The sense of peace and calm. And if I could ask for anything, it would be for you to experience this as well. And it's okay if you're not quite there. Because the odds are, if you're watching this right now, you're doing the work and you're doing a good job. And you just got to keep trucking. You got to keep moving forward. Keep your chin up, keep your head high, keep moving forward. That specific verse, that specific scripture resonates with this week's message because this verse specifically reminds us that true peace is a gift from God. It is a gift, and it's a beautiful gift in itself. Not something we manufacture or that we need to fear. That's something that we have to, it's important for us to work through that. And it's perfectly okay if you do fear the peace and the stillness. Because again, if you came from an upbringing that told you otherwise, it's going to feel foreign. But trust me when I say, you worked hard to get to this point, and there's a reason why you feel this way. When life feels calm, it doesn't mean something is wrong. It simply means that we are learning to live in His peace instead of our past chaos. Thank you so much for spending some time with me this week. You can support this podcast if you guys don't mind. I would really appreciate it if you could not only give me a thumbs up on this video, but also if you can subscribe to my YouTube podcast channel, leave a comment, share this with somebody that you feel like it would resonate with, maybe perhaps somebody that you feel is in a season of life that they need a sense of calmness, that they need some peace in their life. Feel free to share this. I would really appreciate it. It would mean so much to me. And until next week, don't forget to unscramble your faith and find clarity in the chaos. Bye, guys.